Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the pod. I am your host once again, Eric, and I'm joined in studio with my lovely wife, Ashley.
Hello.
We're just kind of conversing about this a little bit upstairs, just, how much things have changed over the years. So I thought we'd have like a Lost in Time episode, kind of talking about stuff from back when we were growing up and how different things are now by comparison, as far as like technological advancements and like things that might have been lost in the past that we kind of like really, recollect and, harken back to nostalgically.
Yeah, because I think especially technology has changed so fast in our lifetime.
Yeah, rapidly.
Well, because I'm starting to notice a difference, like, I guess I'm starting to feel old, if you will, because I'm noticing some of my coworkers, like as I've gotten older, my coworkers are younger, and some of my coworkers are like, early 20s, some of them are like 18, 19, and talking about some of the stuff that I had when I was their age or younger, telling them about it, they're like, oh my God, really? And I just I feel the hands of time
Yep.
working against me.
Yeah, it's a very humbling thing as you're going through life and you realize just, oh my gosh, I'm way older than, most people can kind of see around them. It's like, dang it.
Well, it all started because I was talking to some of my coworkers, and one of my coworkers, he's like 20.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about TV shows and stuff on Netflix and stuff. And me and another coworker who's around my age, we were talking about watching an episode on TV. Back when we were
growing up
and with teenagers, you watched an episode on TV, and if you missed it, you missed it. Like you couldn't.
Yep. And everybody was talking about it at school or like every other social gathering for like the next week, and you were just out. Like,
yeah,
if you missed that episode, then oh well.
Especially if it was like a new TV show, like the DVDs weren't available yet. We had no Netflix.
Yep.
Was DVR a thing?
No, that was later
later
on, probably in the 2000s or so.
So yeah,
Early
if you
2000s.
And we were talking to this coworker, if you missed an episode of your your show, you were screwed. A lot of times you couldn't rewatch it. And he was like, "Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Oh my God!" And he just couldn't believe it.
That's why we are really spoiled with an embarrassment of riches with all modern technology with things, because I don't know, it's a double-edged sword in a lot of ways. Because man, I harken back to I still have a place in my heart for video rental stores.
Yeah.
I still think there was something magical about going there with your parents and your mom and I will get a movie here, and you guys can get one off the $1 kids movies to get as a free throw-in or something.
Yeah.
Or go out there and rent video games. I mean, that was a whole different type of lifestyle back then. It was something that was I feel like is missing in today's world in a lot of ways, because we have kind of like that one comedian said, life dysmorphia, where we have so much readily available to us. It's almost kind of overwhelming and kind of empty in a way.
Yeah.
So, because all these streaming services, what you would go out and rent one special movie here, or for $3 to $5 or something like that for a given night or two, and the late fees, that was a whole other thing.
Oh God, yeah.
But now you pay a set premium month of around $10 to $20 for a streaming service, and you just have an entire library at your disposal. One touch of a button and bam, you're watching so much media.
Well, and think about back when we were kids, it was VHS tapes. I mean,
Yeah.
You show a kid now what a VHS, they don't even know what a VHS.
It's archaic.
Because remember when you would go to the rental store, it would always be "Be kind, rewind." Mm-hmm. I think I saw a video of a kid. They were asking what that meant, and the kid had no idea.
Yeah, clueless. Yeah, because like I said, we're so far removed from those days. I mean, dare to even bring up the old audio cassettes he used to play in stereos, even predating the CDs. Even CDs are a foreign concept for a lot of kids. They're like, what the heck?
Because cassettes came out in
probably the 80s,
the 80s.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Because obviously before that there were records, but I think that was before us. Mm-hmm. And yeah, cassettes were a thing, and I remember getting cassette tapes when I was a kid.
Oh yeah, I do as well.
Remember Walkmans?
Yep. That was a big deal. And then when the DVDs or when CDs came out with the, anti-skip technology, which never worked at all.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah. They still skipped. I mean, they were a little bit better at playing your CDs, but no, if you were jogging, you'd still notice a skip every once in a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been kind of going down, like I said, the nostalgic rabbit hole with a bunch of old video games and everything from with the new Sonic movie coming out here. I'm just thinking back to wow, You know, the old Genesis versus Super Nintendo, you know, culture war with all that stuff. And oh my gosh, I remember going over to friends' houses and playing those games and going out and renting, you know, movies or like games with my buddies and everything. But yeah, that's just lost in today's world.
And I'm trying to think of other nostalgic gaming things. Okay, one thing that comes to mind, Gigapets. Do you remember Gigapets?
Yeah, that and Tamagotchis.
Tamagotchis.
I actually had like a little Digimon pedometer. Me and Kevin, we would actually walk around the neighborhood trying to level the thing up.
I had a little Gigapet thing. It was from Toy Story. It was shaped like a little rocket ship, but it had the alien guy from Toy Story in it. Mm-hmm. I think my dad still has that. Yeah. But I had so many Gigapets.
Yeah, and a decent amount of Tamagotchis. I think probably a couple. I think I might have like a special Pikachu one. I think came out with a yellow version or something. So I might have had that back then as well. But yeah, a lot's changed over many years here. I mean, think about that. Like the 90s, and you know, in some parts are actually like what, almost 30 years old or more at this point.
Something else we were talking about at work was like the difference between Happy Meal toys now versus back then.
Oh my gosh.
And one of my other coworkers, I think he's probably, I want to say he's at least 10 years younger than me and some of the other members of our management team. And we were in our morning meeting and we were talking about like, somehow we got on the topic of McDonald's Happy Meals and the different toys and stuff. He's like, man, the toys I got sucked and you guys had all this cool stuff.
Yeah, oh my God. I remember in particularly the Power Rangers of the mid-90s had these awesome, basically you got like the little figurine of each Power Ranger and their Zord, like the actual like robot they pilot and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And they had like these really cool, like I remember I think I had the White Ranger. He had like the big eagle thing that you could like set his, you know, figurine into. It was really cool.
I always remember the Barbie Happy Meal toys.
Oh, yeah.
I loved those. They had these like little plastic Barbie figurines. Oh, and then remember the mini Beanie Babies?
Oh, yeah. The Beanie Baby craze. That was a whole nother venture. Oh, my God.
I had so many Beanie Babies. It was unreal.
I had a couple. I think Kevin actually had the most, I think, of all my friends and everything. I think he's still got a collection. But I remember going back to what you were saying about McDonald's, you know, having Beanie Babies and Furbies, and we'll get onto that topic later on, too. They also sold VHS tapes over at McDonald's as well.
Oh, yeah.
For a promotional thing. Yeah. That's the other thing. Yeah, those promotionals, you know, I don't think fast food has really been the same with marketing since. Mm-hmm. Someone once said that, like, Godzilla of 97, 98 was peak marketing. Because if you go back and look at all the stuff that they marketed at Taco Bell and everything, this awesome Godzilla drink holder and everything.
I think I have one of those.
Absolutely unhinged marketing. So I loved it. There was so much so much pop and pizzazz. It was maximalism to the max. And by contrast now, everything's minimalism. It's just complete 180.
Do you remember, was it Pizza Hut who had the Casper ghosts, like were they hand puppets or something?
Yeah, they had hand puppets.
Yeah, the Casper ones. I think I had all of those.
They had some of those. I think there was another, I don't know if it was Ninja Turtles too. I know like the Ninja Turtles and Pizza Hut had like big promotions and everything too. And then Book It.
Book It, man.
Mm-hmm. Which still continues today, I believe, in some capacity.
There needs to be like an adult Book It.
Mm-hmm.
Not, I don't mean that in like a perverted way. I mean like, like
get free pizza.
I would like, but it should be like free wine. Like if you read so many books, like you get a free bottle of wine or something.
That's one thing I'll take with, you know, being in today's world compared to back then. The reward point system through like using apps for all these food places is superior to anything back then. Even though your dollar went further back then, I mean, I can't tell you how much like free food I've gotten from McDonald's or free pizzas from Pizza Hut and everything with the reward points. I mean, that's fantastic reward systems.
One thing I kind of hate that restaurants do now is the stupid QR code menus. Okay, I'm going to sound like a total old person, but sometimes I just want a paper menu. Mm-hmm. I don't want a QR code menu. Just give me a real menu.
Yeah, I feel like that's very limiting too, because you have to sit there and like use your fingers, kind of like zoom in, zoom out, and try to figure out like what the heck's like.
Yeah, just give me a regular menu.
Yeah. Make it more complex than it needs to be, but I digress.
But man, what else has changed?
Oh, so much. TVs in particular. Remember the old like massive mega boxes?
Oh man.
Yeah, they're like those giant square TVs, and that's the thing. The format of TVs have changed too, from a square to a elongated rectangle.
I'm thinking of the giant projection TV that you had.
Oh yeah.
Don't your parents still have it?
They still have it, but once again, that thing has like a lamp it's like multiple $100s just to replace, and when it burns out, that thing just like fades to weird olive green and brown. So it was high tech back in its day, but now it's just like it's a giant paperweight now.
Yeah.
So just kind of a big old albatross.
Yeah, it's so funny how TVs just used to be these giant pieces of furniture, and now they're so like you have those TVs that are like I swear they're like paper thin. They're so small.
And that's the other thing too is the price of TVs. Like before, buying that big box TV I used to have in my bedroom, that thing cost probably close to $500 back then. Now you can get like a 70-inch to almost an 80-inch TV for that price at like a wholesale place. I mean, my gosh. So TVs have definitely become more affordable as time has gone on here, and even more ridiculous. Like I've seen like I think over 100-inch TV for sale now. It's like literally a wall. So you can actually buy panels, I think, to like fill an entire wall and make like your entire wall a TV.
Oh yeah, I've seen those on TikTok before.
Might as well just install a Jumbotron. How did you get it through the door?
Yeah,
it makes no sense.
Well, speaking of TikTok, that brings me on to another topic. Like, we were, I think, one of the last generations to really grow up, or not, I don't want to say grow up, but we experienced childhood, at least, without, like, internet or, like, social media.
Mm-hmm. Well, we were, according to, media history, we were digital immigrants in a way, where we experienced life before, like, the rise of modern technology. Like, I really think the turning point really came around like in the early 2000s. So like 2005 through 2008, you really noticed a swing in technology. And at the center of that a lot is smartphone technology.
Yeah.
When that took off, that really just opened the door to a whole new world.
Because think about it, like, okay, when we were in high school, I think cell phones were really just
becoming very popular and, commercialized in a lot of ways.
I mean, I know there were like cell phones before that, but like, I mean, they had those giant brick phones.
Yep. Well, going back to the 90s, if you show a kid what a payphone was, they'll just look at you agape with their mouth
like
open.
Their mind's blown. Like,
what? You actually paid money into that phone to use it? Yeah. We all had home landlines, home phones, and now that's like a foreign concept now. Maybe your grandparents might have it or something. But now, no, everybody's got a cell phone.
Yeah, most people I know don't have a landline anymore.
Why would you? It's just an unnecessary expense in today's world. So that's another thing that's kind of lost through time.
I think the only person I know who has a landline is my grandpa.
Yep, that's what I mean. The elderly probably still have them.
Because he doesn't have a cell phone, just has a landline.
Yep.
But so like when I got my first cell phone, when I started driving, so I think I was like 16.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays, most kids, you get a cell phone when you're like 4.
Oh, yeah. They start with technology way early. And once again, this is the difference between our generation is called digital immigrants. The newer generations, like Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they're considered digital natives. They were born with the technology around them. And they basically we grew up with DOS computers and Oregon Trail. Like we barely played back in school. And I still harken back to this, too, where I'm just like, I feel like all the education we got growing up was almost obsolete or inadequate by the time 2007, 2008 rolled around because all this new technology just, completely made it obsolete.
Well, it's funny. So when I was in high school, so my freshman year of high school, I took a typing computer class. Mm-hmm. My class was the first class to actually get computers. Mm-hmm. The classes before me had legit typewriters. So my class was the first one we actually got computers.
Showing our age here.
I know.
Well, I just remember there was also the old Mac computers that had like the really cool, it was all about transparency and a lot of color at the end of the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Those Mac computers they had with like the connecting mouse, it was like a circular mouse. And they all had like really interesting color, like a turquoise color. I think there was a pink one. I think there might have been like a red and a green.
So I went on a deep dive about that style one time. So you know how it was like all that color, kind of like a aquatic, futuristic looking feel.
Yeah.
That style is called Frutiger Aero.
Oh, didn't know that.
If you can find it, if you look up Frutiger Aero, like it'll like.
So is it also like the Game Boy colors?
Kind of. Here, let me. Hopefully my phone doesn't make any noise.
No, you're fine.
I believe that's how you pronounce it.
I do miss that aesthetic, though.
Like this aesthetic.
Yeah, I felt like it was just way more colorful back then.
But yeah, if that like kind of encapsulates like the early 2000s vibe of things.
Yep. Another thing kind of like lost in time too, which you mentioned you want to kind of go back to are skate parks or skate parties, roller skating rinks.
Oh man.
Yeah, you said that was more of a thing we did back, in our grade school years where they actually had like, big school get-togethers at these specific things. I mean, Nowadays, we can make an argument here too about modern day trunk or treat is more of like a school activity where they
Yeah.
bring people, together, which I think is ruining trick or treat and neighborhooding. But
yeah, man, I used to go to the rollercade.
oh yeah, do the limbo.
I wish those were still popular. And yes, I would do the limbo and I'd fall almost every single time.
I just spent all my time in the arcades. So
That doesn't surprise me.
we go to the Salem Skate Center downtown Salem, which I think might still be there. And there was like a little corner over in the far left where I just kind of like, there was a little food court back there. You can get pizza and everything. And then there was like a bunch of arcades. I'd be sitting there playing the arcades the whole time.
Yeah, I remember at the rollercade they had like a food court thing, and they had pizza that tasted like cardboard. And,
Oh, yeah.
And then I believe they had a few games.
Mm-hmm.
But oh man, when I went there, I used to for hours.
Yep. Now, did you ever do rollerblading? Because that was really big back in, I think, the late 90s.
Well, I did. When I would go to the rollercade, you could get roller skates or rollerblades.
blades.
I got rollerblades.
I always got skates, so...
Actually, quick funny story. I used to, I loved rollerblading. Like as a kid, I loved it. My grandparents had this huge basement, so I used to rollerblade in their basement. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Do they have like those random metal posts that were like holding up the structural
Yep.
foundation? Yeah, and you like smack into them by accident.
I would have my
Clothesline yourself?
I would have my CD Walkman on. I would listen to music, and I would rollerblade in their basement.
Da, 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 limbo walk. Da, 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 da. Slamming into a post. Yeah, there was a lot of things you kind of miss about back then. I miss play places too. My gosh, they were so like the ball pits they used to have at all
Yeah.
those McDonald's. It's like, dang.
Didn't they supposedly get rid of ball pits because
Oh, they were just like a hygienic mess.
they were germ infested and like
Yeah.
supposedly people were throwing heroin needles
that
in the
and
ball
like
pits.
dirty diapers and everything. Like people just
Yes.
literally couldn't like monitor themselves, so they just for safety reasons. Yeah, the needle thing I think is really what like put an end to that.
I remember one time at the McDonald's I used to go to, there was a kid that pooped in the ball pit. And I remember they literally shut down the whole place to clean it up. Oh my God, that reminds me of a story of my cousin.
Mm-hmm.
When me and my dad took my cousin there, JD, when he was little. And I think he pooped himself inside the place.
Yep.
And my dad had to take him to the bathroom and help clean him off.
Yep. Yeah, kids are messy.
Yeah.
I remember there was actually one really intricate place. Where the heck was this? It was at some McDonald's somewhere in like middle of Ohio somewhere, and they actually had like a place ball washer, which was really cool. You basically like you stuck the ball into like this little tube thing, kind of like the bank system. How they had that little
Yeah.
intricate tube conveyor belt thing. You put like a couple balls in there, it would suck it up with a vacuum thing, and it would actually clean off the ball and spit it back out in the very middle of the play place. I was
They
like,
should have just had just like a consistent thing cleaning those things all day long.
Yep. Still probably wouldn't have mattered. Everybody's still dirty. I remember, especially like talking about play place and everything. I remember once upon a time in Ohio, there used to be a SeaWorld over in like Aurora County.
Yeah.
So they actually had this awesome jungle gym looking thing they used to have there where you basically climb around. I think adults and kids could go in
Oh
there.
yeah, I remember. I think I went in that as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I guess I was fearless. I was just climbing all over everything, and
Oh, yeah.
I had no fear.
That type of stuff was really fun. And that's something too that's kind of lost in the past as well. Like that whole tragic story of in this particular area of Ohio, Northeast Ohio, there was once upon a time two like symbiotic theme parks. One was Geauga Lake across this actual like physical lake called Geauga Lake, and then there was SeaWorld, and they both kind of like help sponsor each other in a lot of ways and like advertise with each other, and they live symbiotically from like I don't know the 1970s all the way through the 2000 or through the year 2000. And then Six Flags came in, bought out Geauga Lake, and then SeaWorld tried to buy them out, and I guess Six Flags countered their offer to buy out SeaWorld, and thus they bought both parks, built too big, and by the time 2006 rolled around, when the economy started kind of teetering, they realized they overbuilt, and they began to just sell it off, and then Cedar Point's parent company, came in and bought it, liquidated everything, and just gutted the parks.
Yikes!
And turned them into basically just rubble now. So, still very salty about that, but
Yeah,
boy, that's
man.
something back then that I kind of missed from today. And I know Cedar Point's been basically building like crazy ever since because they have no competition.
Yeah.
And I believe this is a perfect segue into another one of my audiobook recommendations. So, my next audiobook is now available on Audible. So if you get a chance, check out Greater Than a Tourist, Sandusky, Ohio, USA, 50 Travel Tips from a Local by Chelsea Vallejo and narrated by me, Eric. It's got a bunch of useful tips and tells you a lot more about the area just around the Sandusky area, including Cedar Point in the first 10 chapters, and really kind of goes into like extensive details about the best spots to go to, including Put-in Bay and Kelly's Island. Definitely worth checking out. So, now available on Audible. Now, back to the pod.
Well, okay, back to the cell phone topic, you know, seeing how different cell phones were when we were a kid or when we were younger versus what they are now. Like, okay, my first cell phone was a flip phone. And I remember, okay, this shocks children of today. Like, you used to have to pay for text messages.
Yep.
And it was like, what, 10 cents a text?
Yep.
And wasn't it free nights and weekends or something? You got free texting?
There was certain promotions with different cell phone carriers where, yeah, certain ones had like, yeah, free nights and weekends for texting or something like that. But looking back now, it's just ludicrous because texting's included with everything else in your phone, and they realized they could really capitalize more on data than they could on, you know,
well, remember
text messages.
those old phones? You used to be able to go on the internet with those, but it was like really expensive. So if you accidentally hit the internet button, it was like a panic because like you're gonna like bankrupt your whole family if you go on the internet.
Charge it.
So I was like, oh my god, no!
Just like those safes they have over in hotel rooms that you never want to like secretly close.
Oh yeah, the mini bar. But yeah, like I remember because on my one phone, my old phone, there was a button to go on the internet, and it's like, yeah, don't press it. And I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, I remember having early access on those things. Yeah, that's going back to like, I remember like the old Nokia phones. I remember I thought I was like, you know, king of the school because I literally had a BlackBerry back in school. Because like in the early 2000s, like if you had a BlackBerry, that was the phone to have before 2007 rolled around and the iPhone, the first edition of the iPhone came out. That's when it really it tanked BlackBerry. Like they're not a thing anymore.
Didn't the BlackBerry have like the little roller ball?
They had the roller ball in the middle and they actually had a whole text pad down below. So you don't have to sit there and hit the 1 button 3 times and the 4 button 3 times to get to the letter you want to. That was annoying with texting.
One of my favorite phones I ever had was, remember those chocolate phones?
Oh, yeah.
I had a green one with the slide up screen. Oh man, I thought that phone was so cool.
Yep. And then we ended up getting the iPod Nanos and really kind of never looked back.
Well, no, okay.
And then the iPod Touches.
Oh, yeah. It was like getting the iPod Touch. I remember being like mesmerized by that.
Yeah, it was addicting because like, oh my gosh, look how simple. You basically just swipe left and right with your thumb. I mean, oh my gosh, this is so sweet.
Well, that was before we had an iPhone.
You could have all your music on there and then YouTube. Actually having YouTube on your phone. I'm like, oh my God. Because I remember back to like, you know, when I was growing up, think about like the concept of a Pokédex. Like you watch the anime of Pokemon and it'd be like, you know, you could have all your personal information. You could have like, you know, use it like an ID or, you know, some type of like computing device in your pocket. I'm like, that's amazing. And lo and behold, now we have smartphones like the iPhone. And it's got everything, literally like a calculator and all this stuff built into your pocket.
It's so funny because like, you know, I remember being in college because I remember I had you would have to have a separate iPod for your phone or your music and stuff, and just a separate phone to make phone calls and stuff. Yep. And now it's all combined into
one.
Well, it is so funny too. Even thinking back to, you know, remember trying to go on the computer as a kid, and then somebody trying to make a phone call and they couldn't make a phone call, and then you would hear that noise on your speaker when someone picked up the phone.
Yep. Or the other thing, too, where you get the static signal that would come through your speakers if you were using your cell phone too close to a computer.
Oh, yeah.
That was a thing, too. You make that really annoying, like, whirring and hissing noise. Like, it's like, ah. So that's the other thing, too. Computers, like, going from, like, Windows 98 and XP to where we are today with basically, Windows 11, whatever they are now.
I remember having to pay for AOL.
Oh, yeah.
Remember you would get discs? You would get different updated AOL discs, and yeah, you used to have to pay for it.
That's one thing that, like, completely fell off the grid, too. Like, that was such a trendsetter. Like, getting America online was the goal. And everybody had the internet, and we were just like, wow. And AIM, the chat service, was legendary. You basically create your own, like, AIM name, and you could basically get onto random chat rooms, which who the hell knows what you were talking to on the other end.
Oh, God, the AOL chat rooms?
Yep. Those things were just like, oh my gosh. The cesspool of debauchery.
It was a cesspool of horny, lonely, middle-aged men. That's exactly what it was.
Oh, yeah. It was, ugh. There was that. There was MSN Messenger, and then there was all the download platforms, too. Like, originally there was it Napster? That got struck down by the government for, like, copyright laws?
They got sued by Metallica.
Yeah. Because
they started the whole thing.
Because they basically, were, like, pirating a whole bunch of songs or something like that. And then there was also, I remember Morpheus was a downloader software.
Yeah.
You got Morpheus and then LimeWire.
LimeWire was the one I used all the time.
Yeah, everybody had that. I think by the time we got to high school, so everybody was using that to get their songs.
Yeah, and you just hope and prayed you didn't give the family computer a virus when you downloaded songs.
Because you don't know if like any random file could actually be like a virus or not.
And like how sometimes you would like download a song and it would just have like these random like phrases, or like it would be like music on demand, or like a clip of Bill Clinton talking, or just all kinds of random.
Just to do like an audio break in the middle of your song, just to kind of wreck it. It's like, dang it.
Yeah.
I think some DJs still like kind of like revamp that into their soundtracks and their DJing. It's hilarious.
God, LimeWire.
That's a lot of stuff that's changed over the years here too. Is music of back then compared to now? What's better? I still like the rock aesthetic of like the 80s and like early 90s compared to like the stuff we have today. There's some stuff I like today, but man, I like the stuff from back then way better.
Yeah. I think each generation's kind of partial to the music that they grew up with.
Certain tastes. Well, that's the one thing. You're obsessed with aesthetics from the past, like the 1950s aesthetic, but you don't like the lifestyle.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah.
Hell no. I love the music from the 40s and 50s.
Mm-hmm.
I would never want to live in that era, though.
Yep.
No, thank you.
And then I prefer the car designs of today, because I think today's cars look as nice as they've ever looked. I mean, unless you want to go back to like the classic, maybe like 1950s of like the giant swept wings on those like really elongated boats of cars. But like I think the absolute bottom of the barrel design for cars had to have been like the 80s and 90s.
Oh my God, 90s cars were so ugly.
Oh, I just think they look ugly. Oof.
My mom used to have this blue station wagon, a really long blue station wagon.
Yeah.
I remember my dad having a Ford Festiva.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that thing was basically a flying metal death trap. It was so unsafe, but the gas mileage was great. But we didn't have to worry about gas mileage back then.
Yep. Well, back then gas was like what, basically like $1 or $1.50.
I remember the cheapest I remember seeing gas being was 95 cents.
I remember my dad driving into Georgia. For some reason, Georgia always has really cheap gas. And we went on a vacation trip down to Florida, and going through Georgia, we saw 72 cents a gallon.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine?
Well, talking to my residents who are, in their 80s, 90s, gas was 12 cents.
Mm-hmm.
12 cents.
Yep. We look back at like fast food combos from back in like the early mid 90s. Oh my God, like an entire combo was like $3 or $4. It's like, oh gosh.
Yeah. Remember, like there actually used to be like a dollar menu with that everything was $1 and not like $2 or $3.
Mm-hmm. With inflation, that absolutely killed that concept. So now they're trying to makeshift, throw stuff together. And it's like, here's a chintzy burger and like a half baked sandwich and like a small fry and a drink for $5.
Yeah.
Have at it. So no, where you get ahead is actually the reward point system with the app. That's the way to go. The other thing, going back to the past too, I remember, I feel like I went to movies a lot more back then than I do now. Because I feel like the movie theater industry in general, I feel like everything's shifted. Everybody has home theaters at home now, it feels like.
Yeah, you can basically watch whatever you want at home. And my big thing is you don't have to deal with people. Because I'm finding now it's like...
People don't know how to behave in a movie theater anymore.
But I almost feel like today a lot of people just don't know how to act in general.
Yep.
Like being rude to like service workers and stuff like that. But yeah, in movie theaters, every time I've gone to a movie lately, it's like people are talking, they're being rude, they're being loud.
That's why I'm really turned off by even though I'd like to see it on Broadway, that new Wicked, it was like, the Broadway production of Wicked. I'd love to see it on Broadway, but seeing it in the movie, I see all these videos on social media where it's just literally like people singing along obnoxiously with the movie. Like that's a major turnoff for me. I'm like, ugh.
They're making special sing-along editions for that movie now.
That's what I've been hearing,
which is
too.
fine if that's what you want to go for.
You know what you're getting into at that point. But no, if you just randomly go into a movie theater and everybody's just hooping and hollering or just acting obnoxious or people are talking throughout the thing and basically being a heckler, I'm like, you're paying money to like experience a movie and this jackass is ruining it for you. So that's kind of turned me off from movies. Although, like I said, once upon a time we would go to Carnation Mall to go to our movies all the time, and right across the way over in the mall was a giant arcade. And back when I was growing up as a kid, that arcade was awesome. Had like every kind of like game you could imagine there, from Mortal Kombat to House of the Dead and probably even Gauntlet. So.
That's another thing that kind of reminds me that has changed a lot since we were kids was malls.
Oh, yeah.
Because that reminds me, when you were talking about that, it reminds me of the game room at Rolling Acres Mall.
Yep.
But that's something that has changed. I mean, there's very few malls left in this area.
Yep. I think they were kind of used as kind of like a tax loop or something like that, or a tax loop dump or something, where a bunch of companies could basically just stick a whole bunch of like, you know, businesses in a store. They'd have a lease, and I think they were kind of like able to wiggle out of like paying certain taxes for their business.
Yeah.
But that whole business model kind of like was upended, I think, one by Walmart and all the big supermarket stores. I think really kind of like squeezed and like killed them all. But I also think too, online sales like Amazon and everything that really, you know, kind of took them under. So if you still have like the really big malls, like the Mall of America over in like, you know, Minnesota and everything. But like the smaller malls, kind of like you said, Rolling Acres or even Carnation Mall, they're relics of the past now. They're gone.
Surprisingly, Summit Mall is still doing really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the most part, you know, God, I remember going to the mall and like the coolest store to go to, and like when I was in middle school was like the Limited 2, because you had to get clothes from Limited 2, or Abercrombie or Hollister.
Yep, I remember those stores. Some have still survived the test of time, like Spencer's is still around today.
Remember Sam Goody?
Oh yeah,
I think
and all kinds of electronics.
Yeah.
We had one of those over in Alliance.
KB Toys.
KB Toys is a big one. I used to go there. That's where I got my first game console.
Now this is more of a girly store, but I used to go to a store called Deb's.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, it was a total girly store, but I used to go buy all my dresses for dances there because they would be like $10 or $20 for a dress. So I would buy dresses from there.
Yep.
Bath and Body Works.
I remember going to JCPenney, which, I mean, they're still around, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to remember some of the other stores, too. They used to have a Kmart over there, but Kmarts have been, like, much like Blockbuster. They're, like, down to, like, their last store or stores.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these stores just come and go. And once again, Toys R Us. How that came and went.
Toys R Us.
And supposedly is coming back, is the rumor. I don't know if they really are or not.
I used to go to Kids R Us. Can you remember Kids R Us? They had clothes, so I used to go. My dad took me to Kids R Us, and I would go buy clothes there. And then, of course, it was right next to Toys R Us, so we would go there.
Yeah, because they're basically they were owned by the same company. So I think there was also Babies R Us too.
Oh yeah, there was Babies R Us.
Yeah, so there was like a trifecta of stores. But once again, I feel like Walmart and all the super chain super centers kind of like knocked them down to size.
I'm kind of kicking myself because before Toys R Us closed, I wanted to go there and buy one more Barbie doll because I would always go to Toys R Us to buy Barbies. So I wanted to like one more time just to go get a Barbie.
Yep. I remember with KB Toys, they always had that little like, I don't know if it was some kind of like display cart out front, and they'd always have like those moving toys that would like kind of like gyrate all over the place. And it's like they had like the weasel with a ball that was like flipping over like crazy, and that little spike ball thing that had like the squared edges that would be like laughing like. So.
Oh my God, I forgot about those.
Oh yeah, I remember playing with those things and holding them like, I can't hold this thing still. It's shaking out of my hands. So cool.
You know, if anybody who's like Gen Z or Gen Alpha happens to listen, they're like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's going way back in the day. Actually, there are some toys which I think are kind of cool. Like, you ever see those videos? They have these on TikTok too, where people just dedicate their channels. They go out and buy these things where it's like a destructible toy.
Yeah.
You buy it and then you basically like break it down. You like tear some goop or gunk out of it. You get all kinds of little minifigures. You piece them together and everything. It's like really kind of interesting. Like, that's kind of cool.
Well, speaking along those lines of like thinking we're old, remember the one time we were at Barnes & Noble and there were those guys that were looking through it was like a book about the history of video games, and it talked about LAN parties.
Oh, yeah.
And the one guy goes, that sounds archaic.
Yep. Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah, LAN parties were a product of their time in the early 2000s. So, but that was always fun. Actually, I just recently had a LAN party with my buddies. Kevin actually hosted this one where we got together and finally played Halo 2 on the 20th anniversary of Halo 2. Feels weird to say. But we actually hooked that up and actually connected to the internet through a service called Xlink Kai. And that connects to servers on anybody else who's playing on an original Xbox console, like all around the world. And we started playing on the Latin America server. So we were playing a bunch of guys from Mexico, and we almost had full parties multiple times.
That's awesome.
And we were just, oh my gosh, playing some great games. So very nostalgic. But that's definitely, relic of the past.
Remember back in the day when you played video games, you had to turn did you have to turn the TV to like channel 3?
Yes.
Channel 3 or channel 4.
If you had an adapter with like a little coaxial adapter and you had AV cables, you plug it into a converter box and slap it in the back of a TV in order to be able to watch it on channel 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So depending on what setting you had. Yeah, that's going back a ways. I used to bring those with me to hotel rooms because for some stupid reason, they always had the box TVs that never had AV adapters, and I'd always bring like the little coaxial box with me just so I could hook up a game console. There was a couple times where we went to a place, I think over in Sandusky, where they actually had a built-in like buy to play features where they actually had like an N64 controller coming out from your TV, and you could buy games to rent.
Oh, I remember seeing those
and
before.
playing that. Yep.
Yeah.
And I think certain McDonald's actually had N64s and GameCube games you could play at the Play Place too. So that was a big deal back then as well. Once again, shows how far we've come from those days. I remember like they had a bunch of freestanding like demo things to show off like different consoles like PlayStation 2 or Dreamcast. They had those like, kind of like freestanding over in like game stores.
Well, I remember, because I remember they used to have like a ton of those at like, I think Toys R Us, you could go to Toys R Us and they would have a ton of like video game demo stations.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that reminds me. Okay, specifically remember these in bookstores. Remember bookstores used to have like huge CD sections?
Oh, yeah.
Like I remember Barnes & Noble did, and you'd go back into like the music section and they had all those different areas where you could sample the different CDs.
Yeah.
It had the not a touch screen, but
yeah, like little, like basically there's a bunch of little square boxes that had like it showed like what the cover art for every different album.
There was a button for each album,
and you could just hit the button and it would play like random music from that thing. Oh my god, I remember that like over. I think Walmart had those, and I think Target did for a while too.
Yeah, I remember Barnes & Noble had those, and Borders too.
Yeah, Borders had
Borders.
those as well.
I miss Borders so much.
Yeah, yeah, they're a product of the past now. Yeah, a lot of businesses have come and gone. The biggest one I'm surprised about is Sears. Because Sears was just huge, and now it's just gone.
Oh, God, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of big businesses. And once again, I think my dad told me that a long time ago, where he's just like, even Walmart will see its end.
Yeah.
So every business kind of gets gobbled up over the course of time. And I'm just like, that's crazy. Just thinking about, like, an entity like Amazon, how big they are right now, could end up like Sears.
Yeah.
In the near future, where it just like something else just comes along and just blows it out of the water. So that's just daunting to think about, but that's time and change of nature.
It is. God, that's so weird. Mm-hmm. What was the store? You said Alliance used to have one before Walmart. Barberton had one too.
Woolworths,
yeah. Mm-hmm. And then that kind of fell by the wayside too.
Yep. I was so mad when Woolworths closed. I'm just like, I love Woolworths. I was a little kid and I went to Walmart. I'm like, whoa, they got everything.
Yeah.
So I remember going back and look at the video game section. Of course I did. And just like staring, like, I remember the old aesthetic of how they had all the old games and the consoles set up there. And I swear, like, the Walmarts of like the late 90s, early 2000s, like the little rollback, like smiley face guy, had a whole different type of appeal and aesthetic compared to now. Now you go to a Walmart, it's so dreary and dull, and it's like, ugh.
Do you remember when Walmart used to sell fish?
Oh yeah, that and lobsters. You used to have a lobster tank there too.
Well, because I remember I remember it was mostly like beta fish, but all the fish.
Oh, you're talking about like pet fish?
No, pet fish.
Yeah, I remember that.
They used to sell fish, and I remember going back and look at the fish. They all looked just so sad.
It's like, ooh.
And they were on those little tiny cups, and I remember we used to go buy fish. Mm-hmm. I mean, I never bought fish there, but I specifically remember that.
I remember one of the big toys to buy once upon a time. Ryan really got into these too. Lego did a new promotion where they wanted to feature this all new type of marketing thing with a series called Bionicle.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we got into a whole bunch of like buying Bionicles once upon a time. It's kind of like little fighting ninja Lego men or something.
Yeah.
But if you go back and look at like the original price of a lot of these old Bionicle like little case things, I mean, they're in the hundreds. It's crazy how much they go for now.
That's pretty crazy. Man, what's another old school thing that from our childhood that's...
I still harken back to the video rental stores all the time, though. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've talked about them ad nauseum with like Video Safari and everything.
Yeah. Ugh. Movie gallery.
Yep. Blockbuster
Road
Video.
Runner.
Yep. Hollywood Video.
Here's the thing, like Blockbusters were so huge. I think I've only been to a Blockbuster like once or twice.
Yeah, kind of the same. I've only been there a handful of times. I still think it's funny how Hollywood Video bought like an entire like area in front of the plaza over at the Strip in North Canton, and the aesthetic of like the very top of all these stores is still in the configuration of Hollywood Video.
It's still there.
They have not changed it at all.
Man, what are some restaurants back when we were kids that no longer exist? Chi-Chi's, but supposedly Chi-Chi's is coming back.
Might be coming back. So I remember the aesthetic of Chi-Chi's. They used to have one over in Canton. That was interesting.
There was
the wall looked really weird. It's almost kind of like, I don't know, like kind of like a popcorn ceiling type of aesthetic on the wall. It's really weird.
There was a restaurant that when I was really little that we used to go to all the time by Rolling Acres Mall called Ground Round. I don't know if that was a national chain or if it was just like, I'm pretty sure it was a chain. But yeah, we would go there all the time. They closed.
There was actually a restaurant called Quincy's we used to go to, and it was a buffet. I'm sure you would have liked it, just like Ponderosa. It was very Ponderosa-esque. There's another one, too, Ponderosa Steakhouse.
Blech.
That's gone by the wayside. I mean, I guess there's still a couple left, but, man, I miss their wings. They were so good. They weren't good for you, but they were good. And then the big one we always harken back to is Don Pablo's.
Oh, I miss Don
Oh,
Pablo's.
their spoon meal cornbread.
The chocolate volcano.
Yep, dip sampler.
I loved their tortillas because they made them like fresh.
I miss their $5.99, like, lunch fajitas?
Yes.
Oh, gosh, bring those back. Oof. They had such good fajitas and tortillas, too. They actually pressed the tortillas back in, like, the far back corner. They actually had, like, a server come out, and they basically, like, threw down the dough and just, it would steam out, and, yeah. See the burn marks on it? Oh, it's so good. I miss those things. And then there's newer restaurants that actually, like, popped up through time, too. Kind of like Raising Cane's out of nowhere.
Yeah.
They popped up. Trying to think of some of the other big ones. Actually, Big Boy was one that kind of came and went too. I don't know if there's still Big Boy in the area.
In Cincinnati, there is.
Really? Yeah, that was a chain I remember going to a lot. I think I went down to Calcutta a couple times. They had a Big Boy down there. That was kind of cool.
I'm looking up.
I remember going to A&W Root Beer to go get like a frosted mug root beer and a hot dog. That was kind of good. Never really gotten to Long John Silver's, and they're still around.
There's one in Cuyahoga Falls, I think.
What, a Big Boy?
No, I thought you said Long John Silver's.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. Bennigan's. I remember Bennigan's. We didn't go there.
Don't remember Bennigan's.
Bennigan's.
Is Ruby Tuesday still a thing? That kind of went by the wayside.
There might be one.
Really? I always thought they were overpriced.
Oh man, Old Country Buffet. I remember.
Yes.
I remember that. I didn't go there too often, but I remember going there. Eaton Park.
Oh, yeah.
Eaton Park.
I actually got kicked out of an Eaton Park when I was like I guess an infant or something like that. I basically, like, mom and dad took me there and I broke a plate or something. And they asked, like, everybody to leave.
Seriously?
Yep. It was like, okay, I'm never going to Eaton Park again.
Yeah, Ruby Tuesdays.
That's a product of the time. Even, is TGI Friday still a thing, or have they gone defunct?
Let's see.
Because I know everybody's been worried about Red Lobster filing for bankruptcy or something like that. But I still think they're staying afloat. It's just like a certain chapter of bankruptcy for them.
Yes, TGA Fridays is still in business, though the chain has closed some locations and filed for bankruptcy. The one in Fairlawn closed.
Yep. I don't know if the one at Steele's Corners is still there or not, but
I don't know.
yeah. My goodness. Yeah, there have been a lot of restaurants that have come and gone through the years, both for good and bad. Like I said, I kind of look at it with cautious optimism, because there's things from the past that, I miss and kind of like, harken back to. But there's a lot of things about the future that I love. Like, obviously, cell phone technology, tremendous, never better. Medical technology and breakthroughs have never been better than they are now.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. So there's a lot of advancements I'd take over, the times back then. But back then, oh my gosh, there's good from both, and there's bad from both. I do feel like, okay, going back to like the topic of social media and everything. My gosh, back when the internet was still getting big, everybody back when we were in school had MySpace. That was like the king social media platform.
That was really like the first social media platform, wasn't it?
Yep. That was the first big one. You could customize it like crazy. It was awesome.
Yeah, we were learning like how to code and do like HTML and stuff like that, like to do backgrounds on MySpace.
You could add like, you could, configure your friends list, and God forbid if you weren't in someone's top 8. Oh my God.
If you took somebody off your top 8, it was like
controversial.
A scandal.
Yep. It's just like, oh my gosh, Jesse removed Rachel.
Well, and then remember when Facebook first came around, you used to have a college email address
in order to log into Facebook. Yep.
Yeah,
I remember back then too, because I first signed into mine. What was it, 2006 when it first came out or something? 5 or 6. And I remember you could do things called Super Poke and throw cows at people.
I'm like, the Super Poke.
The heck is this nonsense? And now basically they basically confiscate all your data and like sell it to third-party providers and everything. So
well, isn't it funny because they said Facebook started off as a way to like rate girls. That's how it originally started off. It was a website so they could rate girls.
Really?
Yeah.
And you needed a college email address in order to get in there?
Yeah, to rate girls in your college.
Oh.
That's how it started out.
Haven't heard that one yet.
Uh-huh. And then it just exploded.
So if a girl gets enough Super Pokes, I mean, that's
No, that was like before like we would have been. It was like started when Mark Zuckerberg was like in college. It was a way for the guys to like rate the girls on campus.
Weird. Kind of perverty.
Yeah. That's the origins.
Yeah. And now it's basically viewed as like the boomer platform,
Yes, it is.
which
like,
is just like a complete about face from where it was.
yeah, because like
It's basically like constant, what's that? Older generation, high school reunion every day of the, every day of the year.
oh my god! And then now the new thing on Facebook is I keep seeing like boomers falling for AI. pictures. Oh my god!
That's the other thing too, is AI technology. Like I said, to me, it scares the crap out of me because someone could literally steal your like vocal footprint. Like literally, you get a call and it sounds like your mom or dad, but really it's some scammer that's literally just apprehended someone's like digital voice.
But some of these AI photos are so obviously fake.
Yeah.
And all these older people are falling for it. It's like, oh my god, this is an AI picture.
Yeah. Some look pretty darn convincing though.
They do.
It's amazing. So, and once again, this type of technology is just in its infancy. As we go on through time here, it's going to get more like radical. Oh my gosh, to use a dated term.
And it's how social media has changed since we were growing up. So yeah, started with MySpace, went to Facebook, Instagram,
and now TikTok.
Which I still think Meta is going to buy TikTok.
Yeah, I think Zuckerberg and all the other media, social media giants, basically forced their way. Like they basically went about the legal route to try and force TikTok into a sale, to which they might buy up. I still speculate. I bet Bezos buys TikTok.
Somebody's going to buy it because I don't
think it's... Elon buying Twitter. You got Zuckerberg in charge of Facebook and
Instagram. He bought Instagram too.
So I could see Bezos swooping in and buying TikTok.
Yeah.
And he'd have no problem doing that too, especially with Amazon. Can you imagine combining Amazon with the TikTok shop?
Oh my god, it would be insane. But yeah, that's how the evolution of it just...
Yep. Time and change.
Yep.
But once again, and you see this too because we just described it, how Facebook was like the ultimate brand new thing, and now it's archaic. So... that tells me there's got to be another app already out there that's on the rise right now that's probably getting ready to challenge, all the other platforms. Because right now, the big social media platform, the most predominant one I feel like is the short form media platform, which is TikTok predominantly. And there's tried to been imitations with Instagram and Facebook have tried to keep pace with that.
Yeah, Instagram has Reels, but it's like you can only make Reels that last a minute.
And YouTube has Shorts.
Those can be 3 minutes. But yeah, TikTok... you can have up to 10 minutes, which since I started, I'm cringy and I make TikTok videos. Since I started making videos on TikTok, I've grown to like it more than Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
And I loved Instagram. I mean, I still post on it a lot because...
See, I never really got into Instagram. It's like a static picture. And I've always thought static pictures are very limiting in a lot of ways, where short form media... gets to the point, gets to the chase, like right there, immediately in your face. It's interactive. It feels alive rather than some static photo.
Well, because I I kept it as like an archive so I can remember stuff that happened, and I have like an archive of stuff.
I see that. It's honestly probably going to turn into like some type of, I'm talking 30, 40 years from now. That'll turn into some historical archive thing where like you can look back on your grandparents, like, look how they live, look how young they are. So it's basically just going to turn into like almost,
like a memory book, if you will.
Exactly. So it'll be basically probably charge a fee for it, but it'll probably be like Ancestry.com. Look at all the pictures of your great grandmother, twerking over in her prom. It's like, oh boy.
Well, I remember when Instagram first came out, like it was all about the filters and like they had like Valencia. That was like the big one.
I've actually seen one of my Facebook friends I went to high school with. She has gone absolutely head over heels bonkers for AI generated photos of herself in random situations. Like I think there was one where she's rotting a turkey at Thanksgiving.
Oh my god, that's another thing I noticed with boomers on Facebook. They're obsessed with those AI
filters to make themselves look younger, almost cartoony in a way.
Oh my god, my mother is obsessed with those AI things. Oh my god.
Oh look, I'm riding a chicken over the moon. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. It's like they're constantly like using those things to post, and it's like, oh my god.
Stop. We grew up with like watching all the Terminator movies, thinking Skynet. Oh no. This AI is basically just going to be a whole different beast.
Well, even Snapchat has an AI you can chat with. I named mine Skynet, so my Snapchat AI is named Skynet.
I cannot do that, Daniel.
So I talk to Skynet. I've asked it several times. Is it planning on taking over humanity?
How about the more creepy thing, too, with Tesla? They came out with some, like, robot that's, like, $40,000.
Oh, no.
That's the new thing now. I'm like, what is this?
There's a whole series of movies why that is a bad idea.
I think of, like, iRobot with Will Smith.
Terminator.
Yeah.
Terminator, come on.
I'll be back.
God, in like 20 years, that's what's going to happen.
I just think of Bicentennial Man when I think of that. That movie bothered me a lot.
Oh, God, yeah, with Robin Williams.
Yeah, that was weird as shit. Like, he was basically some robotic guy that basically is, like, over the course of 200 years, just turns more and more human. Like, they basically keep on adding prosthetics.
I liked that movie,
That was
actually.
disturbing. Very disturbing. It's almost like a person's playing God. It's weird.
I liked that movie.
There's a lot of weird Robin Williams movies. So, and that's the thing from the past, too. Boy, I miss Robin Williams and Steve Irwin. Oh, my gosh. Bring those two back. Ugh. Yeah, we lost two great ones of those guys. Osh.
Well, and that's something else we grew up with in our childhood. We lived through the Disney Renaissance in our childhood.
Oh, yeah. All the classic, movies and cartoon shows. Oh, my gosh. I remember waking up. That's the thing, too. With streaming services, you don't have to wake up on Saturday morning, and there's no special cartoon block where it's like the entire morning up until like 1 or 2 o'clock. It was all for kids. You got to watch all kinds of like Batman Beyond or Pokemon or all these awesome cartoons. And now it's just, you can watch them anytime you want to. Netflix, Amazon Kids or whatever. And it's just all right there for you. It's not a specified time slot where you had to be there right at that time. And yeah, it's completely changed the game now. So
yeah, and now I feel like everything today, it's like a remake or a live action remake or I just feel like movies back then were better and
more original,
and there's other reasons, but I will not get into that.
Yep. But the thing I can't stand, kind of like what you said, where they take a brand and revamp it for what they perceive to be modern taste, and they absolutely just end up destroying that movie.
100%.
Kind of like what you always hearken to is the Gem movie.
Oh, no.
Like Gem and the Holograms was like a classic kids cartoon show where it was really kind of cool for the time. Like they all sang a song in there. It was really colorful and poppy. And the modern one, it's almost like an angsty young teenager. It's like, Jerica Benson, I live the most average life
ever.
God.
That movie made me angry. Made me so angry.
Yeah. The one I can't stand, which, once again, I never really watched this, like the original cartoon show in the 80s, but He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. They remastered this thing through Netflix, and they bait and switched the hell out of people.
Yeah.
The trailer was advertising He-Man versus Skeletor. It had nothing to do with He-Man for the vast majority of this. It was all about, like, all the other side characters. I'm like, what is this bait and switch nonsense?
The new She-Ra cartoon, I hate the animation.
Oh, the animation's weird.
I hate it.
Yeah.
That's one thing. Gem and She-Ra, even though those both came out, I think, before I was born, I grew up watching, because it was in the 80s. I still grew up watching. I'm like, going to the video store, I would rent Gem and She-Ra like crazy. And yeah, they ruined them.
Yep.
They ruined them.
Here's the one thing. I remember watching Voltron a lot when I was a kid, and like go back and watching those old Voltron movie or TV shows now. Like you can see they recycle the same frames again and again in combat situations, and like the voice acting is so laughable.
Pidge.
Yeah, Pidge. Hey guys.
Okay, that's one thing. They made a new Voltron series,
and that's what I was getting to.
So the first several seasons.
Oh, seasons 1 through 5, phenomenal.
The last
some
season,
of the best writings I've ever seen.
The last season took a dump.
Oh yeah, last couple seasons really kind of like really fell off the grid. I'm like, ugh.
Took an absolute dump.
Yeah, but and they also made Pidge a girl, which honestly I didn't mind.
That didn't bother me at all.
That's the thing, like you didn't know if Pidge was a guy or a girl in the original anyway.
I thought Pidge was a girl in the original anyway.
Yeah, but I love what they did with like the tie-in with like nature meets technology with Pidge. I'm like, that just makes too much sense. That's awesome. But and all the writing in that, I'm like, wow, they actually have like It was very visually appealing. It looked great. And they added such comedy. It almost felt like Avatar Last Airbender. And that's another one, too, we'll touch on. But talk about like the different cartoons that we've gone through time here. But like,
I just keep thinking of Voltron, how much that ending took an absolute shit.
Yeah, it's
I'm
a shame.
Still, Lotor and Allura,
Yep.
They should have been together. Lotor should have had a redemption arc.
Mm-hmm.
And then Allura and Lance, how did that even happen?
Yep.
And Shiro,
I still remember
some random.
what's his name? Karan. Am I gorgeous?
I love Karan, but like Shiro was gay, and they paired him with some random dude.
Yeah, just like slap him with a random guy at the very end. Just like, here you go. Now they're a couple. Hey, there we go.
Yeah, like what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just kind of hastily threw it. That tells me there was corporate pressure. They basically were forced to rush a script, and they basically just slapped it together.
And I remember going on their Instagram page, and
Everybody
the
was pissed.
comments were so mad.
They didn't have a biggest collapse as another series of Game of Thrones. Absolutely shit the bed with their ending.
Oh God,
Like,
Game of Thrones.
it destroyed a fandom. I've never seen, all throughout, the teens of the 2000s, 2010 through, 2019, like, Game of Thrones had such a grasp on entertainment around the world. I mean, it was the most pirated, television show of all time. People were obsessed with Game of Thrones, and, like, the ending just absolutely, floor fell out, and just, it landed flat on its face. And people don't even talk about it anymore. It's wild.
What's another? Yeah. So you were talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Probably one of the greatest animated cartoons I've ever seen in my life.
I agree 100%.
Like, the messaging behind the story, the animation, everything was just perfect. And honestly, a timeless classic of a cartoon. So I love that stuff. And going back to, like, all the cartoons we watched growing up too. Oh my gosh, the Cartoon Network, which I guess isn't a thing anymore. But yeah, I remember watching Samurai Jack was a classic one. I love the
Samurai
art
Jack.
style of that. It was
Me too.
gorgeous. It won Emmys, I think.
I think it
For its
did.
artistic design. It was awesome. Dexter's Laboratory and all that stuff. And now the modern stuff, like, I guess even this is old now, like Gumball and Flapjack. Like,
what the hell is
that's
that?
even dated. But I think they're trying to, like, make it like an equivalent of SpongeBob, because SpongeBob is such a
Nothing
franchise.
compares to SpongeBob.
The first 4 seasons of SpongeBob I feel like are very, like, you can, like, come up with any life metaphor that would relate to any particular episode.
I feel like SpongeBob is, like, embedded in my DNA at this point, because
Oh, yeah.
I quote it almost every single day.
Oh, yeah. That or, like, a type of... It's so memeable. Like, they actually made, like, a What Do You Meme edition with SpongeBob. Which is fantastic. Pick it up.
I remember, and then on Nickelodeon, I mean, there was Rugrats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but... Okay, and the other thing, too, with that, like, we watched that expose of what was going on with, like, the live-action Nickelodeon.
Oh, my God, and, like, all
the
that.
Amanda Show
Amanda
and Drake and Josh.
It's like...
Holy crap.
It's like, oh, my God, my childhood is ruined.
Yeah.
I could... Ugh.
If you ever get a chance, check out that documentary. That was just,
awful.
What was that one called?
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
What was that called?
It was like The Lights Off or something like that. But that was a fantastic, like, expose on, like, behind the scenes over at Nickelodeon. I'm like, whoa.
There's some messed up people working around children.
Oh, my gosh. Well, I mean, it makes sense. They're, like, child predators trying to target children. They're in a medium where they're constantly around children. So, scary stuff. That's one thing we were kind of talking about, too, because we've kind of been, like, binging the old Frasier, like, TV show recently.
I love Frasier.
Like, we were talking about this randomly, too, is, like, I feel like there's no real good sitcoms anymore.
There's really not. I mean, granted, I don't watch a whole lot of TV anymore.
Yeah.
But I can't think of any. Yeah, I can't think of any, like, really good sitcoms.
Modern shows that are like I kind of think back to, like, the very first few seasons of maybe, like, Big Bang Theory. Were kind of entertaining in a lot of ways.
Modern Family's pretty good.
Still have never seen that one.
I don't think you'd like it.
Really?
No, I don't think
Even
you would.
Frasier's back out again, I think, with a new revamp series. We still have yet to see that one. But I'm trying to think of, like, any, like, newer ones.
Everybody Loves Raymond. That was a good one.
But that's dated now. That's
that's
back
dated.
in 90s and early 2000s.
There used to be, oh my gosh, was it called Becker? I remember that series. My parents and I used to watch Becker with Ted Danson, who used to be on Cheers.
And back then, once again, you had to tune in for those, those shows in order to watch them during their time slot. Otherwise, you missed it.
Oh, speaking of, Christmas is around the corner. That's something my parents were talking about, back when they were kids, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, that was a big deal.
Oh, yeah. You
So,
missed it.
If you missed Rudolph, when it was aired on TV, you couldn't watch it again for another year. You'd have to wait a whole year to watch it again.
Ugh. Crazy.
And I mean, when I was a kid, we had it on tape.
I was going to say, back then, and a lot of younger kids probably won't realize this too, with VCR technology, like, the more updated VCRs actually had a record button. And you could go to, like, a dollar store, drugstore, and pick up, like, a pack of, like, 3 to 6 blank cassettes that could record up to, like, 3 to 5 hours. And you could basically plop it in your VCR, and if you run, like, your cable system with a coax cable to the back of your VCR and to your TV, you could hit record. It will record your program that's playing on TV, so you could have it on a cassette tape. And basically, it was pirating before, and I don't know why they were able to sell those blank tapes, because basically you're stealing.
Pretty much.
stealing entertainment back then.
It was kind of like DVR before DVR.
Yeah, only way more illegal. Because it's like you always
Well,
see
if
those
you
warnings,
use
just like any copy, this is violating copyright if you steal any reproduction of this product. And it's like,
But that's what my grandma recorded. I talked about this before. She recorded on VHS The Last Unicorn for me.
mm-hmm.
And then I remember recording X-Men, the X-Men cartoon. I had that on. We recorded that on VHS.
Mm-hmm. I think we actually recorded over a couple of my brother's birthdays with Angry Beavers episodes. So you'd be sitting there, and it's like Jeremy is like covering himself in peanut butter, and all of a sudden you just switch over to like Norbert and Daggett, like fist fighting each other.
That's like you hear the horror stories of people that like record over their wedding video or something. Oh my! So okay, remember when you recording. When you had to record like home videos, remember the giant camcorders that you would have to carry on your shoulder?
My parents had one of those suckers.
We had one of those too.
Oh yeah, it was like basically like kind of like what those news stations. They basically had those massive cameras. They like hunk on their shoulders.
That's basically what our whole movie cameras were like.
Oh my god, yeah, those things are huge. It basically had like a giant carrying case with them. I remember that sucker.
Yeah, and then I remember they got smaller and smaller because I remember the one that you used to be able to hold in your hand, and it had like the mini tapes in it.
Yep.
And then you would put that mini tape into a VHS to play it.
Mm-hmm. And as a photographer, like former photographer for Shutterfly, I will tell you, camera technology from back then compared to today, I will take today's cameras any day over the old school stuff, the old film cameras. Because working for a newspaper and everything, we used to actually go, like there was a dark room they had there. And you'd have to develop the film in this really darkened area with like a single red light. And like the fumes were just, suffocating in a lot of ways. We'd sit there and like develop the film and everything back there. Oh, it was whole different than like taking like an SD card. Basically, you could have like over 1,000 images on an SD card, plop it in your computer, bam, you upload everything, and it's right there.
Well, now it's like with your phone. It's
your
like
phone's just as good a quality now.
It's a camera, it's a phone, it's a game system.
It's a recording device. You can literally record video with it, and it turns out to be just as good a quality. Like you see these young aspiring like filmmakers, they'll basically like you'll see those advertisements with newer iPhones.
Yeah.
They're like, this little mini movie was shot with an iPhone. And it's just nuts because like the technology is just there now, readily available. It's fascinating. So like I said, that's stuff to kind of like look forward to as time goes on here.
To quote Squidward, future, future. See? SpongeBob quote.
Mm-hmm. Everything in the future is Chrome. They weren't kidding. Google Chrome. It's everywhere.
No, everything in the future is white and gray and beige.
Shoebox.
Like
shoebox designs everywhere.
Like I talked about in our episode about Christmas and the sad beige Christmas. I'm not kidding. Everything now is so blah.
That's what I mean. I feel like things were way more colorful back in the day, but once again, maybe everybody's taste changes, through time and everything like that. So maybe everybody's just like so burned out from all the overstimulating colors and everything. So I'm like, all right.
I don't like it.
I mean, I like, I'm a maximalist, much like you.
Yes.
So I like seeing color everywhere. And then I'm trying to think back to like, as games have gone on here, like I don't really play more of the newer Pokemon games as much as I did like the older ones way back when.
Yeah.
So those ones are classic. Although we do play new Pokemon Snap and stuff like that.
Remember the Game Boys, the old Game Boys?
Oh yeah, the old brick Game Boys, like
There's
the
brick
giant ground ones.
The Game Boy Color.
Mm-hmm.
The what was the one? The Game Boy Advance. I played my Game Boy Advance a lot.
Oh yeah. So that technology kind of took off here. I'm kind of harkening back to like the different styles of like games you get into, because like going back and playing like the old retro Sonic compared to newer Sonic, it's like night and day. Everything's so like in your face and like super poppy. It's like whoa.
What was the handheld PlayStation game?
PSP.
PSP.
Mm-hmm. That was a cool little console. Ryan had one of those.
I remember that.
Yeah, it's very high tech for its time, but I feel like it was kind of kind of limited in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I feel like the PSP didn't last very long.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it was more of an experimental thing. It was certainly better than the Game Gear. The Game Gear, I think, it literally took like 6 or 7 batteries to operate the darn thing. I'm trying to think of other stuff from Ohio.
A Rizzler's last thoughts should be of Ohio.
Yeah,
I was waiting for you to use that soundbite.
I know. I've been holding on to that one for a while.
Oh, we forgot to use the angelic. Ah.
Yeah.
Oh well.
We'll use it next time. I don't know. Like I said, it's good and bad. So there's good things to kind of look forward to, and there's stuff to kind of like, you long for in the past. Or it's just like, I miss those days. But I don't know. I go through life with a bit of cautious optimism. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's kind of healthy in a lot of ways.
Oh, I did think of one more thing we talk about, like before. So with like different generations, like talking about like they asked them like, okay, how do you hang up a phone? Like do the motion how to hang up a phone. Like we put our hand up to our ear and then put it down.
Yeah.
And then the kids like they just like hold up like they're holding up an iPhone and press the button.
They press the button.
And then what's with the how to roll down a car window? We do the motion like we crank the window, and the younger kids like
and they
press
just
the
like
button.
press a button. Yep. And once again, it's you're gonna have that as like different generations go on. Like there was even a thing like back when cars were first becoming a thing. Whenever like the really old generation that were basically learning how to like use cars, they would actually hit the brakes and scream out "whoa" because they were used to being on horseback. Yeah. So it's one of those type of things. I feel like.
Well, that's how they used to have cassette players in cars. So one of the other managers I work with was talking about her nephew. I think somehow he saw a picture of a cassette player in a car. He thought it was you put your phone in it to charge your phone.
Ugh.
Like that's not a bad idea, but yeah, he thought he had no clue what a cassette was.
Yep.
It's like, wow, we're getting old.
Yep. But like I said, that could be a good thing too. So
Yeah.
I look at it from the positive side of things. But yeah, I think we'll wrap it up here. So thank everybody for tuning in for another episode. Hope it's been a nice little nostalgic trip for everybody as we sit there and talk about the past and things to kind of look forward to in the future. So, but we'll see you next time, and it all depends on the situation. Have a good one, everybody.